On Friday, we spoke with the heads of the For Country Caucus, a group of veterans in the House led by Colorado Democrat Jason Crow and Texas Republican Tony Gonzales. We began by asking them about their bipartisan efforts.
What this caucus is all about is respecting each other and being able to have those debates where we can agree on some basic facts. We don't call each other evil. We don't call each other names. We're not maligning each other personally. We're actually having policy debates and figuring out how we move our country forward.
Why do you think, Congressman Gonzales, that being veterans somehow changes the way you're able to speak to each other about these things?
And it's as simple as service. And folks that have worn the cloth, regardless of service, they love this country. And we work together to solve real problems. The Afghan special interest visas. I mean, these are very important issues. A lot of us spend a lot of time. I spent 5 years in Afghanistan. We don't want to lose sight of our allies, and we don't want to leave those people behind. We've pushed hard with this caucus to give Ukraine everything they need to win this war, to include F-16s. We were very early. We were the first bipartisan caucus to push the administration for F-16s, and now you're seeing them start to come around.
You have both, I should say, at the get-go, been outspoken in your belief that Israel has a right to defend itself in the wake of those horrific terror attacks that were carried out October 7th. You, Congressman Crow, have said just this week, Israel's military confirmed it was an Israeli attack that bombed that Palestinian refugee camp in Gaza. You said, this should not have happened. I've fought wars in crowded cities. When civilians were present, it changed our plans. Arguably, this is potentially a war crime. Why did you think it was important for you to say this?
Because I stand with Israel and its right to defend itself, and I believe very firmly that Hamas must be destroyed. It cannot be allowed to exist as a terrorist organization and pose threats to the Palestinians and to the Israelis. I fought 3 times in Iraq and Afghanistan. This nation spent 20 years at war, spent over $3 trillion to destroy al-Qaeda, to destroy ISIS, and yet those organizations still exist. So the lesson drawn from that is that you cannot destroy a terrorist ideology with military means alone. You have to have politics, you have to have diplomacy, you have to have humanitarian aid, because you can kill a terrorist, but if you destroy or kill innocent civilians, you create more terrorists in the process. So that is why I am adamant that to support Israel, to do this the right way, we have to put front and center the protection of civilians. And every time the United States makes a mistake or strays from our path, I call it out, because the path to getting better and improving is being honest.
But this is often framed as either for or against terrorists. You're saying, no, you can prosecute a war on terrorism without causing mass civilian casualties.
Well, I spent years in my earlier career fighting terrorists, literally fighting terrorists, and seeing some of my friends give everything during that process. I am a very ardent national security Democrat. I know that there is no military solution to these issues alone. And because I want success, because I want us to do better and to learn from our mistakes, we have to be honest when we do make those mistakes and when our partners make those mistakes.
Do you agree with that, Congressman Gonzales?
I think war is ugly. And I think in war, there's a lot of nasty things that happen. I think it's important. What you saw this week in the House is the House passed aid to Israel in a bipartisan manner. And many people on the other side of the aisle didn't agree with the structure of it. But you saw a dozen Democrats unconditionally support Israel. I unconditionally support Israel. Whatever comes over our way, I think we have to unconditionally stand with our allies.
But unconditionally is different from what Congressman Crow is saying, which was you can prosecute a war on terrorism without causing mass civilian casualties. Do you agree with that?
I would argue that Israel is not trying to cause civilian casualties.
But they have, was the fact
in every war.
bombing.
In every war, there's casualties.
You think it's unavoidable?
I think it's unavoidable with what is happening, but I also believe Israel is doing everything it can to make this military targets and not punish a population. But how do you eradicate a terrorist organization that is embedded in every aspect of a civilization? It's a very difficult problem set to have. But think back to the 1,400 Israelis that were slaughtered. I mean, Israel didn't start this war. I'm of the mindset, a ceasefire needs to occur when Hamas is eliminated.
Right. But you were drawing a distinction between Hamas and thousands of civilians. And that's the pushback on your argument, is that there needs to be a brighter line.
There
when it comes to
does.
civilian?
There needs to be a distinct, when does this war end? How does this conflict end? In my eyes, the conflict ends when Hamas is eliminated. And also, I think back to these threats are not just abroad, they're here in the United States.
There has been a rise in anti-Semitism the administration has talked about, and we've talked about, the FBI has talked about. In fact, the FBI director said Jews make up 2.4% of the public, but account for 60% of the religious-based hate crimes. That was before October 7th. This has been a problem in the United States of America. Let me ask you about rhetoric, though. Do you oppose Donald Trump's repeated calls for a ban on Muslims? He just recently brought that up again.
I don't pay attention to what the previous president is kind of. But I don't pay attention. I mean, okay. I mean, ban on Muslims, folks coming over here from these different countries. I'm of the mindset of this.
Because it would contradict what you were talking about with the Afghan
I'm of the mindset of this. It's people that can come over here legally, people that are coming over here to do, to visit our schools and do these different things. Perfectly fine. I don't care where you come from, what religion you are. But if you are actively going against the United States, if you're actively encouraging, inciting a riot and terrorism, your visa should be immediately revoked and you should be deported. Sure. You can do both. It doesn't have to be a universal ban on everyone. It also shouldn't be a no laws are enforced. This is where the administration is getting it wrong. Sure. They're not enforcing anything.
Sure. But just on the theme of civility, I think preciseness in language and not using ethnic groups or religious groups, would you advise that anyone in office not call for bans of religious groups or ethnic groups? Or deportations? I know you pay a lot of attention to immigration issues.
Sure. I don't look at the race, religion, creed. I look at the action. And I think if we focus on the action in which these individuals are doing, and we focus on that, and then we hold them accountable. Once again, the administration is not deporting anyone that is actively inciting this terrorism. This is where the words, when the president gets up there and says, "I stand with Israel," your words have to equal your actions.
And I'll just say, providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization is against the law.
Yes.
There are numerous investigations along those lines. There have been numerous prosecutions, and I have no reason to believe this administration does not enforce those laws and to take that very seriously. They do. I know they do. And they should continue to. I'm extremely concerned about the surge of anti-Semitism. It is unacceptable. I condemn Hamas, and I condemn those who support or provide a permission structure for Hamas. And I'm very disturbed about incidents on campuses and incidents around the country where we see young people doing that. Obviously, there's freedom of speech, but there's a point at which freedom of speech becomes a violation of law if you are providing material support.